little bit, but this is ultimately with the iPhone X or so. This is the iPhone 5, that's the iPhone X, and I have one of the newest iPhones. I just don't use it because I don't really care. Until the iPhone X gives out on me, I don't really give a rat's patoot. Now, with all that being said, fellas, let's talk about some training here first and foremost. Then we'll talk about little tidbits and all that good stuff. Fellas, I've been doing a lot of overhead pressing lately. Neutral grip bar, bamboo, the Chaos wobble bar, axle overhead press. Oh, God, excuse me. And dumbbell overhead press, kettlebell overhead press. I'm just trying to get as strong as possible in the overhead press. And it just hit me today like a ton of bricks that there is the overhead press that I have never done in my life. And it is the javelin, I believe it's called javelin press or something along those lines. And I did it with an axle bar today, that bar today. So here, and then press up. And guys, let me tell you, this is probably my favorite press because there's something about being, and I don't know if it's the same if it's with a normal barbell. Maybe it's just the fact that it's such a thick bar, but I'm sure with the normal barbell, the same concept applies. There's just something about a barbell, and you can't do it with a dumbbell because the dumbbell will get in the way. With a barbell, you can really pack your lats. So you can pull your lats like down and back. You can retract your back. Like you can use your lats to initial press, just like you can pack your lats a lot when you press, like you bench press, and that's how you get a big press. And when you do a normal barbell press, like you can't do it the same as when you have this like grip here. You know what I'm saying? Like that's why like these pullover machines and stuff, a lot of times it's like, you know, with this underhand grip. So it's like, there's something about this, that this single arm press. Listen, I'm not gonna dwell on it too much. I'm just letting you know that is what today I did it for the first time. It felt absolutely amazing. I'm gonna really specialize in it and hopefully get up to like 200 pounds in one arm, right? And then hence, you know, when I get to 315 at the normal bar, hopefully it feels like a peanut. So I guess that's kind of the idea with it all. But also I'm doing it because, you know, my main thing right now, my job, right? I'm in WWE, I'm a professional wrestler. So I'm a superstar, right? And, but I'm not just a wrestler per se, you know, I'm a strong man. So like my thing is that like I'm legit strong. So I want to do stuff that other people can't do. And that includes all sorts of pressing things overhead, you know? So that's kind of like been my goal lately, is just to get as strong as possible with pressing odd objects over my head. And bodies are the ultimate odd object. They're very wobbly and shaky and stuff. So along with, you know, doing these different types of presses, I ordered myself a loadable keg. Titan Fitness sells it, loadable keg. It's not cheap, but, you know, it should last forever. Ideally, I hear it's a lot bigger than a normal keg. So a normal keg I think would be ideal because a normal keg would be about as wide as a person is. This Titan keg seems huge, but I like the idea because it's going to be, you know, it's going to be hard to like grip it and press it up, and it's just going to be awkward. It's not going to be totally even and stuff, and I think it's going to have good carryover. But this stuff doesn't really apply to you guys, so let me think of some stuff that does apply to you fellas. Well, this press is money. This is a good way to overhead press and engage your lats for a stronger overhead press. I highly recommend that you try that out. It could be a normal barbell at the gym, just retracted lats, right? And it's money, guys. I've never done it before. I've always been a big fan of single dumbbell overhead press, but I'm telling you that it just changes the game. Now, obviously, you have to really grip it hard too because it's not stable. But remember, the harder you grip, it increases shoulder stability. So it's a win all around. I don't want to get too far. I think that's the main things to cover since last week. Nothing else has really changed from there. My decline press, that was a PR, all-time PR with the decline press. The reason I switched to decline is because I'm just waiting on a heavy-duty bench to come in the mail, and I didn't want to go any heavier, especially with like the slingshot gimmick. Like the bench will break at that point. So decline, I figure it's already in a decline position, so what's the worst that can happen? It can't snap. I'm already like pretty much touching the ground with my back and my head. Anyways, let's talk about some stuff that might apply to you guys. I don't want to, have these terrible ranting tangent videos. I want to hopefully address some stuff that can help you guys better yourself. So let's get into this question here. I got some very long questions, multiple questions per question, if you know what I'm saying. We got Dave C. Dave C saying he's 36 years old with a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. So this is a busy dude, right? He's got 2 kids. He's busy. He's got a full-time job. He's got a part-time job as well, which is insane. That's just like, you're a busy dude, man. So it's kudos for finding the time to really get after it and train. He says, my content motivated him to push the iron around, keep striving to improve. Last year was a rough year with injuries and things of that sort. So he was close to hanging it up and just quitting as far as the iron goes. But watching the content has made him want to lift more. Absolutely. I mean, that's what it's all about, brother. I watch content at times too, things to inspire myself. I'm not really a go-to, but for the longest time, I would watch like Ronnie Coleman's old training videos. Like, yeah, buddy! Just like high energy, high intensity, heavy ass weights. Like, that's what it's all about. We're just feeding off of one another. Feed off the energy. So this question might not apply to most people, but it's just a question for me. He's asking if I ever thought about entering the expert division of a local Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament and win off of the wrestling alone. Well, so this is interesting because I went to like a Jiu-Jitsu class once because I figured for my career, I was like, well, maybe it'd be good to learn some Jiu-Jitsu holds. I don't know. It might be worthwhile. And it's like, they did technique for like 30 minutes and it was just like live sparring for like the next remainder of the class. So I have no idea what I'm doing, but let me tell you, I know how to move my body basically, and I'm strong. So nobody can put me in any locks or get me or anything because I would basically I had no idea what I was doing for jiu-jitsu. So I would just like grab their head and just try to, I think it was called a can opener. I would just try to break their neck basically, right? And I would just hold that position and just hope that it wears their neck out and stuff. And then ultimately it hit me like a ton of bricks and I was like, well, these people, they have something to prove in these practices, right? Here I am, I'm a professional wrestler per se, and I'm also like a former Division I wrestler. So like they're like, oh, I'm gonna show this guy. So it made me realize that probably in terms of like my joint integrity and me not really knowing what I'm doing with jiu-jitsu, like I was probably gonna end up hurting something. So it just wasn't worth it for me because getting a taste of that class, the live sparring, the live goes. It's just like, if I was going to learn it, I would need someone just to teach it to me and not have this, ulterior motive of their ego. Like, oh, I want to tap this guy out and whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, the stakes are too high for me to risk injury like that. And ultimately, this was over a year ago that I did that. This is not listen, when I'm in the ring, it's all strength stuff anyways, right? I'm going to throw bodies around, suplexes, presses, that kind of stuff. I'm not going to be doing jiu-jitsu holds and all that. That's not my style. I want powerhouse, right? Mega powerhouse. But with that being said, it was fun. But listen, I don't know. Yes, I guess in a sense I have considered it. But I also, I have a great respect for jiu-jitsu. I remember when I was 25 or something like that. I was at the strength and conditioning facility, and there was a dude that had a jiu-jitsu gym. He owned it, so he was the instructor, and he still competed. And he was talking to someone about some tournament or whatever. And I overheard him. I was like, "Oh, I'll spar, I'll scrap with you or whatever." And like, I took him down a bunch of times, but I had no idea what I was doing. And he just got me in one like arm bar movement or something like that. And like, I think he was pissed that I was taking him down or whatever. So he like really cranked on that, even when I was like tapping. But that humbled me, that first experience. And that made me realize that like, it doesn't matter how strong you are, how good you like, takedowns and all that kind of stuff. Is you get caught in a lock and you don't know what you're doing, like you're screwed. Like that guy, he got over you. You know what I mean? So I respect the art of it, and I always told my woman too, like, if there was anything you wanted to learn for like self-defense, it's probably jiu-jitsu, because like, you're small, and she's not weak, but she's small, you know what I'm saying? So like, if just a man came and did anything, like, with jiu-jitsu, it's all leverage, knowing what you're doing with the joint manipulation. Like you don't have to be a beast powerhouse. Like in wrestling, like college wrestling and stuff, technique is extremely important. But at the same time, like you can also, like strength goes a very long way in wrestling. Like you could be not very good, but if you were just a freaking, bulldozer, like you're probably gonna do okay without technique or athleticism, is what I'm trying to say. Then he says, do I have a preference for a particular brand of or style of lifting belt? He feels like a lot of people focus on those little things, like what type of belt to get, but I'm curious if I had any preference with that. He's got an old Inzer belt, he's been using it for 10 years, but the buckle pokes him in the junk when doing deadlifts or certain hip pinching movements. So here's the thing with belts. I've noticed that, first of all, I think everyone would agree, but the wider and thicker the belt is, the better it is. It's just ultimately more support, right? And I can say that from experience because I have this belt. This thing's a piece of crap, but I've used this belt, and then I've used like thinner ones, or not thinner, that one's super thin, but I've used like not as wide ones, and then I've used thicker ones than that. And when they are, like when I worked at a strength conditioning gym, there was a belt like this width, but it was much thicker, and it had great support, and my deadlifts felt stronger, my squats felt stronger. And then I've used like those like bodybuilder like thin belts, and it feels like it's just gonna literally give me a hernia. Like those belts are so stupid, it doesn't make any sense. I bought like the belt at Walmart where it's like thin in the front and they're really thick in the back. I bought that when I was on the road one time, and I just wanted a little bit of support. And I was like, this is the stupidest design ever. Why is it thin in the front where you want to brace and thick in the back where it doesn't need to be thick in the back? So I don't know if you guys remember this, but I just spun it around so that it was really really wide in the front and thin in the back. And it actually felt really good. Like that, it's funny because it's like a mean belt. It's like a Walmart belt. But if you spin it around and use it that way, it works pretty much just as well. It's just as good as a powerlifting belt, like a really expensive powerlifting belt, because it's so wide. It's got so much support. The only problem is you can't get it super tight and then spin it around. So that is kind of a pain in the butt. But something else, since you say your belt kind of pokes you. So with this belt, what I do, because this belt's really thin, and it's really thin and really hard, so it's really sharp. So I have the same thing. When I do deadlifts, it kind of would like just stab my ribs or stab my hip bones. So I kind of got just a compression belt, like for back pain, basically, like they sell anywhere, like at Walgreens or anything like that. Like a really crappy, minimal support compression belt, and I'll put that on just to kind of shield my ribs and my hip bones or whatever, and then I'll put that other belt over. And I think that's essentially it's what like strongmen do too. You'll see like they have two belts on. They'll have like that first layer, where it's a really cloth thin sheet one or whatever, and then they'll have their big belt over it. And I don't know why all the strongmen do it that way, but I think that's originally what inspired me. I was like, well, that's a thing that I've seen a lot, so why don't I just get this? And it actually ended up, it works really well. It's just that little extra, layer of cloth just makes it so that when this thing just doesn't dig into my bones quite as much. And now what's funny about it is if I don't have that thin compression underneath that belt, it's like I can't even use it. I'm so used to having the two layers now that if I go to a different gym and I use a different belt, it just doesn't feel as good, because like you get accustomed to what you do. Anything, if you change any setup that you do, whether it's like you're benching on a different bench, you're deadlifting with a different bar, you're squatting with a different belt, for instance, it's altering your strength, and it's like affecting your nervous system in a million ways, basically. Like it's just not gonna be the same. So it's consistency. It's consistency with your technique, it's consistency with your setup, and it's consistency with your equipment. So I would say, since you've been using that belt for so long, like you're probably really good and used to it, obviously. Maybe just find a way to kind of pad it a little bit underneath. But if you had to get a new one, I would just say get the biggest one you can, right? Thickness and width or whatever, like the millimeters. I think it's like, I don't know if it's 15 or something, or maybe it's 13 is the biggest it gets. I know it's like 10 millimeter and 13 millimeter. I don't know if there's 15, but just get the biggest one you can, because ultimately you want as much support as possible in your midsection to brace against. Because I've also used those meme joke Velcro belts, Yeah, and even like Spud Inc., like at work for strength and conditioning, they have like the Spud Inc. deadlift belts where it's like Velcro though. And like say I'm squatting and I'm, bracing really hard on the hole and the belt just explodes open. So like do never get a Velcro, like, and talk about how dangerous that is too. Like you're bracing really hard on a really heavy load and then the support just explodes off. Like terrible. So I always get, whether a prong belt or a lever belt, something that locks into place. Don't get Velcro. If it's cheap, doesn't matter, don't get it. Then he asked what my thoughts are about the Ironmind grippers. He says that he got them, when he was younger, got really hooked on using them, thought he was going to become a grip, master or whatever, got bored of it quickly, then ended up giving them to his dad, and then his dad at this point now gave them back. And now that you're saying that you're better with programming, that you think, it'll be good. But he's asking me basically, like, what do I think of these grippers? Because listen, guys, I have so many grippers now. I went through the same phase. I bought the generic grippers like 10 years ago. Like, oh, this is really going to help my grip strength for wrestling. It's going to be amazing. I have the strongest grip in the world. And then I bought the Ironmind grippers as I got a little bit older. Same thing. Oh, I want to, close the 4 or whatever. And then I got Juji Mufu, his Grip Genie or whatever, sent me a whole set of those too. And the gist of it comes down to this, is like, I just, if I'm going to train, the last thing I want to do is just train this useless function, basically. Like, I think obviously doing it a lot, like, yeah, it'll strengthen your grip, but it doesn't really apply to a ton, because I can, like I said, I went through a lot of phases where I trained it, but like when I was in college and I was using them a lot, I still was ultimately pretty weak compared to now. And it's not like I've been doing these grippers a lot, and that's why my grip's stronger. My grip's stronger from doing like heavy pulls, heavy rows, heavy deadlifts, and that kind of stuff throughout the years. Because a lot of times with the grippers, it's just, I would say listen, I'm not going to say it's useless, but like just every time I've done it, it's like, you plateau, it's so hard to get past the plateau or whatever. It doesn't carry over to your deadlift at all. It doesn't carry over to like your fat grip strength. So it's just a very specific like crushing strength. And because of the way that it like sets in your hand, it's not really applicable. It doesn't carry over super well to a barbell. And like when I progressed from like the Captains of Crush a couple years ago, from like, the 1.5 to like the 300 pound one or whatever it was, like that was, I got really strong. I got a lot stronger with that crushing, but like it's not like I was overhand deadlifting, freaking 600 pounds. Like my overhand deadlift strength really didn't improve much at all from using the grippers. So I was like, well, ultimately, what's the point? And then same thing with like the forearms. I also did at one point to try to get jacked forearms, and it's like, I don't know. Maybe I just never stuck with it long enough because it's just boring. I like doing total body stuff where I'm cranking tunes and I'm getting intense and I'm screaming and I'm and I feel like maxing on this gripper. It's like, it's just so anticlimactic. But listen, again, it's an open forum. If other people have experience with using these grippers and you saw, I put an inch on my forearms and my overhand deadlift strength improved 100 pounds or whatever, then please, let the community know. But personally, from my experience, I never really got anything out of it. But that's not to say I regret doing it at the same time. And even as of right now, I kind of wish I would have stuck with it, because for me, I'm the most extreme person ever. For me, it's all or nothing. Either I'm going to do it every single day, or, I'm going to it's going to become my lifestyle, or I'm just not going to do it at all. And I feel like for those grippers, that's not necessarily a good thing, because because they are so easy. And it's like, oh, you can hit a rep with the 1, you can hit a rep with the 2, you can hit a rep with the 3. You can call it a day. You can do the grippers for 5-10 minutes your entire day. And if you're consistently doing that, you probably have a hell of a grip. So I'm going to encourage you to just keep doing it, but don't hyper obsess about it. Every time I've done it three different occasions where I'm like, oh, these grippers, and I do an hour of gripping. You know what I mean? And then my hands are raw, and then I do it so much that I come back to another day and I'm I feel weaker and everything feels terrible, and it's it's always discouraging. So I think as long as you do it, do the bare minimum with the grippers, but just be consistent with them. I think that's probably the best way to go. Again, these are just my 2 cents with all of this, but I'm sure a lot of you guys, we're all meatheads, we all think alike. We have all at one point wanted to use these grippers and thought we were going to grip all day and have giant Popeye forearms or whatever. But I feel like it's fun to go to the gym. It's fun to load up a barbell. It's fun to pull, press, squat, do all that kind of stuff, load up machines and max them out. Just like doing this is like, I don't know, it's more like a party trick. You know what I mean? Like it is, I will say that. It's fun to get strong with those grippers and then take them wherever you are. And then if you're like doing it like other people, oh, let me see that. And like they can't even close it. That's fun. When they can't close it and you're like, oh, really? And then you do it in front of you, just rep it a million times in front of them. That's fun. Decimating their egos is fun. So yeah, I believe that was all Dave's questions. You got the 3 questions there. Now let's talk about Josh Bartlett. Josh is a big time supporter, throughout the years. See him on the YouTube comments, right? Always, he's one of the rats in the nest, you know what I mean? You gotta love Josh. So he said he's only been lifting since he was 20, now he's 22, so he's only been lifting for 2 years. Now, these numbers are amazing for 2 years. I mean, especially from 20 to 22. 780, no straps on the trap bar. 805 trap bar deadlift with straps. I mean, that's great. 2 years, dude, at 22 years old, over 800 pounds, Jesus, over 800 pounds of the trap bar deadlift is insane. When I was wrestling in college and I started deadlifting when I was like 22, I was only up to maybe 500 on the trap bar, and I thought I was pretty strong, and I was, like for my size and everything, like that was measly. So it's great, fantastic. 705 behind the back deadlift, 640 hook grip conventional deadlift with a body weight of 200 pounds, 6'2". Says he guess he hasn't been drinking enough milk because 6'2", only 200 pounds. Like it's pretty, seems pretty lanky. Obviously muscular, but like I'm saying, you can fill it a lot. Like you could get to like 250. I really believe, like no problem. You just gotta eat, man. With that strength and that frame and stuff, you gotta just eat a lot, right? And I know it's so simple. People always say, you just gotta eat, but it's freaking true. You just gotta eat. And don't make the same mistake that I made for the 20 plus years of lifting, where I've always been a believer of, don't eat, and it's good to train fasted and whatever, and big growth hormone spikes, and that'll help with gains, because it's BS. Like, you might get a little bit leaner training that way, but you're not going to make gains. Like, I mean, you will, but not as easily, because I'm telling you, fellas, like, going from that fasted training and not eating before training, or like not drinking carbs and amino acids and stuff during the training, now I'm just a scoop of protein with 100 grams of carbs right before I train, scoop of protein or aminos, another 100 grams of carbs while I train. Like, so now I've gone through 200 grams of carbs for the workout basically, and like 50 grams of protein or something, or like 20 grams of amino acids, 10 to 20 grams of glutamine, around 10 grams of creatine every time, with some citrulline malate in there. Drinking all that stuff while I'm working out, because ultimately your muscles use glycogen and glucose in your bloodstream. Like, that's energy to burn. And if you're fasted, like if you're depleted in a sense, and you're training through that, like you're only making it harder to build muscle, right? Like you're setting yourself back. And that's I've come to that conclusion. It's like, I don't ever want to set myself back in my training. And people can say, oh, you're taking, with the training, you're taking a step back, but then you're taking 2 steps forward because you're breaking your muscles down, but then you're sleeping and you're eating, so you're building it back stronger. It's like, yeah, but if you're getting all these carbs and aminos and other, performance enhancing supplements and stuff in you, like while you're training and all that, like it's not going to set you back quite as much, like in terms of like beating you to the ground. Like you're feeding your muscles as you're training them. So then your recovery is going to be that much easier too, and you could actually put size on that way, because you're not like fasting. Like when I would fast, I would go to bed, I would wake up, I usually wake up at like 8 or 9 or something around there, 8-ish, drink coffee and stuff. It's 11 o'clock. would roll around. Sometimes I get really caught up in the morning. I don't start working out till 12, but a lot of times, like when I was the fasted, I would start earlier because I was freaking hungry. 11, 12, whatever, work out for 2 hours. Now it's 2 o'clock, it's 2 p.m. and I still haven't eaten anything. Like, how much is that setting me back when I'm trying to build muscle? So that's peak time to eat or whatever. Drink your calories while you train, but eat all the rest of the day. Needless to say, whatever, I don't think I would have come close to any of these numbers in such a short amount of time if it wasn't for the mindset. He's got a nice gorilla emoji as well, because that's what we're talking about here, fellas. We're talking about the silverback gorilla mindset, aggressive, right? You got to believe it to achieve it. You know you can lift these weights, and you just smash it, you crush it, because you knew you could, because you've done 5 pounds less the day before. And that's really how you getting after it and attacking it and having an awesome goal in mind and believing or knowing that you can do it. That's how you make huge strength gains, basically. Get that efficient nervous system and not taking days off, right? I mean, you got your heavy days, you got your light days, you can do it that way. But listen, every time I take days off, I always come back weaker. And I don't know what it is, but I'm telling you, that's why I've always kind of been opposed to it. At one point, I had to go out of the country. This was years ago. I came back and I lost, I was specializing in T-bar rows at the time, and then I had to go to France, and I came back and I lost 100 pounds off my T-bar. I mean, it was a T-bar row, but I was doing I was trying to get to 12 plates like Ronnie Coleman. Of course, I'm using a lot of leg drive and cheat and stuff, but I think I got up to 11 plates. And when I get back from France, it's 8 plates feels heavy as hell. And it's like, man, I hate taking time off. And it's the same thing with just the other day. I was on the road, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm just gonna take a day off because I don't have a good gym to train at. I'll probably feel better, hit a big bench PR, and then after this day off. So I take the day off, I come back the next day, whatever, get to the bench, I feel weaker than ever on bench. It's like, what? I just had a day off. Why? What is happening? But that's how it is. My nervous system gets sluggish or something. I get really tight when I'm not being active. I don't know what it is, but I think that works against a lot of people. Now, it's not to say if you're chronically overtrained, you're in the military and stuff, you probably need a day off. But if you're just slinging weights around, hoisting iron, it's not that serious, right? Consistency. Consistent with high intensity training and a game plan and a goal and a burning desire every day. So you're saying growing up, never played sports, just lifted really in high school for the weightlifting class instead of regular PE, threw the shot put, discus for a year. But he was never really strong, right? I mean, look at him now, those are beastly numbers. And I was kind of the same way. Let's read why this is, maybe he says. Was never really strong without the mindset. I'm sure I would have never started powerlifting and hitting huge weights. I would have stuck to the pump, the fluff, Johnny bodybuilder lifting. Anyways, okay. Yeah. And that's the same thing with me when I started lifting. I had decent musculature when I was 11 to, college. I had muscle shape and stuff like that, but I was weak, man. Considering my size and all that, I was struggling, I was just the way I was training, 3 sets of 10, doing a million different exercises and stuff. When I got to college, I was 200 pounds, and I don't even know if I could bench 225. I'm talking about weak, you know what I mean? Squat, I doubt I could squat 225, right? Maybe I could do really bad reps. I didn't even deadlift. I just did all the BS bro stuff, right? I probably had a good strong curl or something. I don't know, but that's the thing. To get strong, you just have to do heavy compound movements. When you're doing the fluffy stuff, the tricep push downs, the preacher curls, the pec deck fly machine, the lat pull downs. You'll get a little pump in your muscles, but you're never gonna get strong. And that's what I was talking about earlier, single arm axle overhead press. This is a compound movement. Stability is just, a killer. You're heavy, lift up a keg, deadlift the keg, right? Hoist it up with hips, uneven, hard, awkward movements. Low reps where it's just max, you need stability, you need intensity. That's how you get strong. It's just insane how people are so reliant on the accessory movements trying to get big that way. get big with these heavy, awkward movements, or get strong with them. You're gonna have an amazing foundation to put size on too. You don't really need to do. That's kind of what I've realized, like, because I went through this phase where I was like, well, I'm just gonna try to get as big as I can for my career, right? It's not about function. It's kind of just about the look. I got kind of got back into that mindset, and then I was starting to do like push pull legs, that kind of style again with more reps and stuff. I was doing a lot of like rows, pull-ups, curls, even throwing like triceps work in, like that kind of stuff. When I would go to the gyms, because I'd be on the road every single week, or I still am, but I would always do the machines. I would go to gyms, I'm like, oh yes, gyms. I would look for the gyms, the bodybuilding gyms. This gym's amazing. It's got every machine that you can think of. It's got the Flex, the Nautilus, and whatever hammer strength. And I would spend hours just pumping out reps on all these machines. And it's like, man, I'm not getting any bigger, and I'm getting weaker. Like I would come home and I would do like, I would try to do the heavy stuff, the powerlifting movements or whatever, like the high intensity stuff. And I would be like weak, right? And I'm like, man, I'm training so hard at all these gyms and doing all these machines. It's just I'm seeing nothing from it. So then I kind of got totally away from that. And now when I go to gyms on the road, I don't look for bodybuilding gyms anymore with all the best machines and stuff. Now I look for gritty gyms that have chains and things like bamboo bars and bands, like these hardcore gyms that like accommodating resistance and conjugate and all that kind of stuff, because it's going to be fun to do max intensity, max effort stuff, and like awkward stuff with, like I said, bamboo bar, chains, like everything just to really bring the intensity to the next level. And my point was, like, I'm actually seeing, obviously I'm getting stronger doing that kind of stuff now as opposed to using those stupid machines. But like, I think my size has actually improved since doing them too. And I think we're probably all different how we respond, our bodies respond to certain things, but I think that's another reason why I started training the way I did, 10 years ago or whatever in the first place. It was because when I was like, man, when I deadlift every day or whatever, I actually feel like I make better muscle gains than when I'm doing all this other BS. I'm pretty sure that was one of the things. I was like, I'm seeing strength gains. I'm putting weight on this lift every single day, but I think it's also making me bigger. So that's just how I respond. I don't know. We're all different. I know that's a cop-out, but I've tried doing high reps and bodybuilding stuff and a lot of accessory movements and like that. And honestly, for me, it doesn't make much of a difference at all. I don't see, I want to do these laterals to really try to round out the heads of the delts. Never really see a difference with that at all. If anything, it's the opposite of if I just grabbed a weird, any choice of barbell and just, hit a couple reps with it. Max effort, even one rep. I feel like I make gains that way. I know they don't do, newbies, you can't max out every single day and make gains. And it's like, well, if you know your body, you can, right? If you're maxing like this every single day, like guillotine, flared elbows on your bench with, terrible form and stuff, yeah, you can't do that. You're probably going to get hurt eventually. You're going to plateau, but if you know how to use like your lats and your press, your leg drive and whatever, take your shoulders out of it as much as you can, where you're not pressing, tearing pecs and stuff, and then the next like progression is something else you can go to, right? Like I very well think you can max every single day. So I got a question here about, let's see here, about improving posture. Good ways to improve posture from the deadlift. I've noticed all my max effort lifts, I get super tight and brace hard and try to start in a good position with good form. But my back begins to round before the weights even budge. So I don't seem to lock in but I do seem to lock in before the weights move. Well, so I think it depends. I mean, obviously, when you're doing max effort, like you're not gonna be able to keep this locked in. Otherwise, it's not really max effort. So I think you need to, like you said, you do get locked in before you get rolling. Like you'll try to be in good form, and as you're pulling, like it pulls you in the position you lock in, and then you can do it. I think you should just get in the position locked in. Because when I was specializing in deadlifts, when I was trying to peak with it, I kind of came to that same conclusion. I was like, man, I feel really like I always like grip and rip it, right? And it pulls me into this position. And it's like, clearly this is the position I feel strong though. Because I was like, well, what's exactly happening here? And then I was setting it up where it's like, well, instead of pulling it and then having it lock me in this position, why don't I just grab it, and lock into position, and then go? And I think it actually did. It felt better. So it was like for me, like you're saying, upper back round a little bit. And I was like, well, if I tuck my chin, because a lot of times, people will say like, oh, head neutral or whatever, head neutral, and as you're going to lock, they'll like look up or anything like that. Well, I was like, well, I want to keep my core as braced as possible, right? Because I always deadlift in slightly rounded position. So why didn't I just plan on being in that rounded position already? Tuck my chin so I can really clamp down with my abdominals, so that way when I do pull, it's not like pulling me into a bad position. I'm locked into this good position. And that felt better. But improving posture, you're not really rounding per se because of bad posture. A lot of times, like when you're doing light sets, you can have this, everything's straight and it's fine. It's just as it gets heavy and you can't, you don't have the strength for it, like naturally your body's moving its levers in a way where you'd have like better leverage, where the weight is getting closer to like the fulcrum or whatever. So like biomechanically, your body thinks like this is the way that, let's get that barbell as close to our hips as possible, right? But the main thing is that's happening not because of like lower back. I used to be like, oh, if I get really strong spinal erectors, maybe my back won't round, or maybe it wouldn't hurt my back, but it's strong spinal erectors are not going to prevent your back from rounding. Strong glutes, strong hamstrings, like that's the kind of stuff, like when those muscles take over, your back can do what it should do, and that's just stabilize. So like I think the best hamstring exercise, in my opinion, it's just I feel it the most out of anything I do, is like weighted back extensions. Like RDLs are great. RDLs are amazing for hamstrings. RDLs are amazing assistance movement for deadlifts in general. And they'll definitely smoke your hamstrings as well. But it's still, for me, it doesn't hit them as hard. Like I have devastating soreness when I do like 45-degree back extension with weight. And I think it's just because you're almost in like that locked out position. So you're getting the peak stretch on your hamstrings, giant range of motion. And then you can come up and you can hold the squeeze at the very top. And since you're at this, this is your angle. Like when you hold the squeeze, like you still have that tension. So it's like you can, hit the rep and then you can hold it. So you can basically do it till failure. Like with a deadlift, you would have to go down and then hold it. I don't know. There's just more moving parts with the deadlift. Like your back can fatigue, your grip can fatigue. You can have a bit of bend in your knees, trying to make it more quad dominant or something. Whereas that back extension, you're just locked in, and it just feels like you're gonna tear your hamstrings. It's the greatest hamstring exercise ever. And then for glutes, my favorite movements for those are these like single leg movements, split squat, lunge, reverse lunge, something like that. That stuff hits my glutes like no other. I can guaranteed be sore doing those things. Like when I do them, I guarantee I know I'm going to be sore. Another movement that I started doing, I just got to find a way to go heavier with it. But I started doing it because it's incredible. And I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner, because like the deadlift is amazing and the squat is amazing. So if you can find a way to combine the two movements, that's fantastic. So it's like, well, you have the trap bar. The trap bar is essentially a squat, but it's a deadlift. And that's true. But the range of motion is small. Even if you're using the low handle, the range, it's still not like a comparable to like a squat. It's more of a half squat, and that's even with the low handle. With the high handle, it's like a quarter squat. So the solution, especially if you're a sumo deadlifter, is the Ukrainian deadlift, right? Stand on two platforms, like maybe your plyo box or something, plyo box, down to those two. I just stack bumper plates and then put like a heavy 100 on top so they don't move. So I'm standing on two stacks of plates. And then I have a kettlebell that goes up to 203 pounds, but that's not enough. But basically, you can do like a deficit sumo deadlift or even like a semi-sumo deadlift stance. You can hold it so you can go so that your grip, the handle is below your feet. So essentially you can do an ass to grass squat, but it's a deadlift. You know what I mean? But you're holding the weight here. So that you're getting the benefits of a squat, but you're getting the benefits of a deadlift at the same time. And because the range of motion is so big, It's such a good stimulus for hypertrophy as well. And then, of course, your leg drive should go through the roof when you go back to your normal deadlifts because, your leg drive should go through the roof because the range of motion is freaking double what it would be on a conventional deadlift. And then if you have stronger leg drive, you're not going to round in your back, basically. Now, we're just going to address everything that comes with back rounding. So basically, you strengthen your hips, you strengthen your hamstrings, your back shouldn't round. But it's not to say that your core is not important in a sense, or like your abdominals and your obliques. So, the hell are they called? I can't remember what they're called. But anyways, side planks. Side planks are going to be a good thing. They're not going to make you have beastly strong obliques, but side planks and planks in general, planks and side planks are good to do to like activate this musculature before you deadlift. So it should be a little more rigid, preventing the rounding, keeping you a little tighter, and obviously keeping your spine safer. And then like single arm, like if you're holding a heavy weight with one arm, you can literally just hold it, static hold, or you can do like a farmer's walk with it, because that's working your obliques as well. I mean, you could do a little side bend, I guess, like, little bit, but I'd be careful with that kind of flexion and stuff under load. So I think it's just work those muscles the way they're supposed to be worked as stabilizers. So heavy one arm hold or heavy one arm farmer's walk, that'll strengthen the hell out of your core as well. And if you have really strong obliques, glutes, hamstrings, your leg drive is great, like you're gonna be able to lift a lot more weight without your back rounding. Your back's rounding simply because you're not strong enough to lift it without it rounding. That's other than the upper back portion of it. But like I said, even if you were stronger, like if you were super strong, your upper back wouldn't round for whatever weight you're using anyways. Then you would go to your max if you're super strong, and then it would round. You understand what I'm saying? Like, regardless, if it's your max, your upper back's gonna round for it. Yeah, so anyways, it said on a side note, I noticed it's nearly impossible to do the behind the back deadlift with a flat back because I get it stuck in the hamstrings. And that's true. With that, the leverages of that, the movement pattern, like essentially you have to round. But there's a difference between rounding unwillingly and like, okay, lock, clamp down, and then do the deadlift. If you know how to clamp down and brace, it's not gonna be that big of an issue because the weight is loaded up with like it's in the midline of your body. It's like directly underneath your spine. So it's not gonna be like pulling you forward and destroying your discs. But if you don't know how to brace well, it probably will destroy your discs if you're like gripping and ripping it and that with a rounded back. Anyways, it says, also I do not have any pain in the back after these lifts, even though people say it looks like it hurts. Yeah. Okay. So with that one, I used to be a huge fan of that because I was very comfortable rounding my back because in college wrestling, like, you want to round your back a lot and you want to get as low as possible and like rounded. You want to be a ball basically. So when I was doing those behind the back deadlifts in the day, I was very comfortable in being in a tight ball, I guess. And like that was just a natural position for me. And it didn't bother my back. And but I also braced really hard. I got really good at bracing in that rounded position. But now, from getting away from that after my knee surgery and doing more conventional stuff, going back to it now feels absolutely terrible. And I feel like I'm gonna hurt my back doing that. Especially the way I used to do, like gripping and ripping. I think I took a lot more chances back then because I was never seriously hurt. And it only takes one serious injury to let you reevaluate the way you do things and say, you know what, maybe it's not worth getting that PR if I'm gonna grip and rip and try to jerk this weight up and potentially blow my back out. But remember, it all comes down to consistency with things. If that's the way that you're consistently pulling and it doesn't bother your back at all, like it's probably pretty rare that one day your back's just gonna blow out. Like eventually things kind of accumulate. Like that's like, oh man, my back does not feel good. And it's like you keep pushing it, like, and eventually it's getting worse and worse. There's the same thing with your shoulder. It's like you're benching, it's like, oh, my shoulder just kind of hurts. Well, I'll warm it up and then maybe the pain will go away. right? And it's the next day, it's like, oh man, that's terrible. I mean, yeah, you're probably gonna hurt your shoulder at that point, but it's like if you're benching shoulder pain free, shoulder pain free, shoulder pain free, it's not like one day it's gonna be like you're just gonna blow it out or something. Like it's usually these injuries are kind of a, accumulating effect. That's not to say that's always the case, but like for me, when I blew my knee out, it was I should have listened to my body. I had other signs, like I tweaked it in the ring. And from the MRI results, it showed that like there was already a sprain, basically, or like a tear in my meniscus. Yeah, there was a sprain in my MCL and a tear in my meniscus already. Like they could see that. So it was like my knee felt funky, but I didn't think anything of it because I was never seriously hurt. And I was just, going super heavy on these Zerchers, and that's when it just blew out. So it's like, if you have these warning signs, like, oh, it doesn't feel good, just please listen to them, because it's when you say, hey, you know what, maybe I'll just warm up and it'll go away. And you're maxing out the neck. What do you know? 20 minutes later, you're maxing out grinding reps. Like, they're probably going to tear something. With that being said, fellas, I believe that's it. I'm really excited I'm going to be gone on the road for 10 days about or so. So I'll see what kind of content hopefully I can get good content there. But I'm really excited for when I get back because, like I said, I got some new training toys I ordered. Just a lot of, trying to keep it fresh and exciting for my own training, give you guys ideas. And then I should probably have a heavy duty bench by then. I'm getting a new open-ended trap bar with a million ideas that I have for that. I think that's going to be a game changer in terms of single leg movements. And maybe even, clean and pressing with, I don't know, like we'll see. But as always, thank you guys for the support. The rat's nest has never been as infested as it is now. It's quite insane and unbelievable. And I will see you guys. Hopefully, get a good YouTube video tomorrow. And then it's on the road, and we'll see what happens there. Maybe some intense gladiator hotel workouts, or maybe nothing. I'll be in the wilderness for like 5 days or something. So maybe that could be a gold mine of content, or maybe that'll literally just be zero content. We'll see.